Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Lead Volunteers Podcast. We're grateful that you're here. We're here for three simple reasons. Number one, to help you, the ministry leader, to get organized. Number two, help you stop the revolving door of volunteers. And number three, prevent ministry burnout. Now, a lot of you don't know this. Some of you do. A little few of you are starting to pick up on the idea that we actually have some of these audio recordings, they actually have a video component. So if you wanted to go to YouTube, the page is Josh Denhart. You could find some of those there. Grateful. Today, I'm actually really excited about this particular interview. I think it is the heart. I think it's the heart of ministry. I really, really do. And I have a guest today, my friend Ryan Frank. Ryan, good to see you.
Hey, what's up, Josh? Thanks for having me.
Hey, you bet. So today we're talking about pastoring your volunteers, being a shepherd and not a slot filler. I think this is
Yeah.
about as important as it gets. Well, before we
Yep.
jump in, just share just a touch. You are all things Kids Matter, so kind of take it away a little bit and share a little bit about Kids Matter, and we'll jump in.
Well, thank you, Josh. Thanks for having me. A huge shout out to Josh Denhart, Sarah, your family. You are and I don't tell you this often, but you are such gifts to this community. Thank you for raising the flag of excellence and for providing such great practical resources to help this children's ministry community lead their ministries so well. My wife Beth and I had the opportunity to begin Kids Matter 20 years ago while we were on staff at a local church. And over the years, God has blessed this ministry. A lot of you have been impacted by Kids Matter, whether you subscribe to our magazine or you avail yourself to our website, as you see on the screen. Those of you watching the video version, a lot of downloadable resources. Some of you have been a part of KidMin Academy, which is our 12-month online program where you can earn a diploma in children's ministry. And then we also have the opportunity to see so many of you face-to-face every fall at our online event. Was called Kids MegaCon. It's now called the Kids Matter Conference. Would love, there it is on the website as well. Josh and Sarah are part of the event. Many of you are there. It's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to be resourced and trained and encouraged. Happens every fall.
It
So,
does.
Josh, thank you so much for having me. I believe in what you are doing, and I'm excited to jump into this topic today of how to pastor your
Yeah,
volunteers.
absolutely. And the Kids Matter Conference is a huge thing for us. It literally is one of my favorite things. I love to talk with leaders. I love to literally come alongside and pray and encourage leaders who are hurting in the trenches. But the interesting thing is, you may be pastoring the pastor, but we need to encourage the pastor to pastor their volunteers. And that's our topic today. So,
Yes.
Ryan, today,
Yes.
usually what we do on the
Well,
podcast is we seek to define it, we seek to develop it, dig a little bit deeper, and then I want to have you help us to say, well, okay, I get it. Where should I start? So let's start with defining this. How would you define pastor in the context
yeah.
of volunteer leadership?
Well, start by asking yourself the question, how do I view my volunteers? So do I view them as people that are filling a slot in planning center or on a calendar? Do I really view them as people that God has entrusted me with? And part of my role in their life is to shepherd them and care for them. So if you think about a pastor,
Yes.
think about, a pastor at church. What does a pastor do? So a pastor teaches, a pastor, my pastor always says they guard, they graze. I feel like he's got another G in there. But you take care of the sheep. You teach them, you care for them, you help protect them, you feed them. And with that kind of a mindset, I want you to think about your volunteers as people that aren't just there to fill a slot on the calendar. They aren't just there to do a job.
Right.
They aren't just there to help me fulfill my ministry, but I really am called to care for them and to shepherd them. And if you will view your role as a pastor to those leaders and those volunteers, it will change the way that you do ministry. It will effect changed the way that they do ministry. But it starts with that mindset, Josh, of
Yeah.
these
I
are people under my care.
Yes, I love it. As soon as we started talking about this in preparation,
Mhm.
my heart was so warmed, Ryan. And I think this is such an important topic, and you're a great person to speak on it. Um,
Well, thanks, Josh. Let me butt in real quick. A
yeah,
lot of times in this community, and because you have this podcast, you're dealing with these topics every week. But as ministry leaders, we spend so much of our time
mm,
on the recruiting side of volunteers. We're always thinking about VBS is coming. I need 40 volunteers. Camp is
yes,
coming. I need 30 volunteers. Fall is coming. I need to recruit for these 3 classes. We've got this, and it's easy to live in recruiting mode and forget that working with volunteers effectively is so much more than recruiting. It is
yes, it is.
caring for them. It
Yes, it
is
is.
shepherding them. It is, sometimes we use the word retaining them, but it's so much about being their pastor, about being their shepherd, about caring for them. And when you really get this down and you really get this right, you won't have as much of a recruiting problem because you won't be able to beat those volunteers off with a stick. I
That's
mean,
right.
this is their community. This is where they belong. And all of a sudden, you won't have as many slots to fill because these people aren't going to want to go anywhere. They're being cared for so well.
Yes, I think what you're saying, you and I have talked about this on a number of occasions. Most people don't have a
Yeah.
recruiting problem, they have a retention problem. But one
Yep.
of the ways to retain is to simply love people and encourage them in their
Yes.
walk with Christ and shepherd them.
Yeah.
100%. And
Yep.
that's like inside of the lead volunteers kind of ecosystem.
Mhm.
This is 101, right? So we're talking the same language. Okay, let's
Yep.
dive in. What can leaders practice? So we understand the heart. We need to be doing this. We understand, but like when it comes to being a shepherd, what
Mhm.
what practically could we do?
So here's how this breaks. So what I've done is I've taken pastor and I've broken it into 5 points. PASTOR.
Yes.
PASTO. 6. That's 6, not 5.
That's good.
6. Okay. You see, I had to count. Watch my fingers as I was counting.
Yeah.
So let's break this down, Josh. P. It starts with praying for these people. So here's the thing: your volunteers every Sunday, or your dream team, or whatever you call them, they bring with them stuff
They do.
every Sunday, every Wednesday night. They bring stuff with them, which breeds the question for you and I as their leader: how well do you know their stuff and what are you doing about it? If there is anything, I'm telling you what, there are people, Josh, you know this, and a lot of you in this community know, we have an 18-year-old with special needs.
Yep.
Lucy, she's always going to live with us. We just went through last week a whole guardianship process, which is it's nice to have that done in one sense, but it's also was very, very difficult week for us um, going through that process. Just the reality of it. If there's anything that means something to Beth and I, there are some people that we know
Yeah.
are praying for Lucy.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't just say, "Oh, we're praying for you guys," blah, 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 but we know they are praying for us in this situation. When you when your leaders know that you not only know their stuff,
Mm-hmm.
which requires you having some conversations with them, requires you getting to know them. When they know that you not only know their stuff, but you are praying for them, all of a sudden that creates
Yes,
a
it does.
bond
It does.
and an affinity that money can't buy.
That's right.
So, do your leader? I'm sure your leaders know that you care for them, you appreciate them. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably the type of a leader that you want to create a good culture. Part of that, pastoring those people, is them knowing that you've got their back in prayer. That
And
you can
and
go
you
up
know
to them on
what?
a Sunday.
You
What's that?
okay, you're so right. And part of the way it's they may know you care, but a way to show that you care is to literally stop them, put a hand on a shoulder where appropriate, and
Yeah,
pray right there. One of the things, Ryan, if I could
no
say,
doubt.
part of the one of the great resources inside of Lead Volunteers that I was
Mhm.
just shocked as to how many people love this. It's called um, a calling scripts with no ask or agenda. So inside of the Lead Volunteers,
Mhm.
one of about 150 downloads is there are 7 or 8 different scripts. Now, some people need a script. I actually don't. I can wing it pretty easily. But there are 7 different scripts to call people on the phone, and don't ask them for anything. Ask them
Yeah.
about their stuff and then pray for them. I could not agree
Well,
more. I think this is huge.
yeah, and you created such great content, and I've looked at those scripts before. They're excellent.
Yes.
If you catch wind from your pastor, or you catch wind that maybe one of your volunteers has a doctor appointment on Wednesday, or maybe he or she tells you, I've got a doctor appointment Wednesday, and you can text that person Wednesday morning and say, I want you to know I woke up this morning and I'm praying for you today as you go into that doctor meeting. All of a sudden, I mean, the relational equity that you
That's right.
have gained with that person, it goes through the roof, and it just shows you care. I'll also say this, Josh, before we move on to the next one. When we're talking about praying for your leaders, we all have difficult leaders. We all have difficult volunteers. People that just don't always make our life easy. We're
Hmm.
grateful that they're there, but they're difficult. Um, when you pray for that person every day, your attitude toward that person will change.
Sure does.
I have found that it is nearly impossible, Josh, to hold a grudge against somebody that I'm praying for every day. I mean, if I'm genuinely praying for somebody, how can I hold a grudge against them, right?
Wow.
My attitude towards them changes. So um, it starts by really taking this thing of prayer seriously and letting your people know that you care about their stuff, and you don't just care about it, but you are battling on their behalf in
Yes.
prayer.
Well, and I have to say, Ryan, years ago, when I was on staff for about a decade, we made kind of a transition. And one of the transitions we went to was when people are telling us something challenging, rather than saying, hey, I'm going to pray for you about that, to pray right that very second. Don't tell them you're going to pray for
Yes.
them. Literally, just pray for them. It doesn't have to be a 40-minute prayer meeting. It can be a 30 to 45-second honest to goodness prayer right there. So that's huge.
Mm,
Number 2,
yeah.
talk to us about this next one. PASTOR.
Yeah, ask questions. Nobody I remember, Roger Fields, who was such a huge part of the Kidmin world for years and years, um, with Kids Blitz. He always used to say that nobody aspires to fog a mirror. And if you're looking for someone that can just fog a mirror, if you're looking for a warm body, nobody aspires to be a warm body in a classroom.
Right.
People are busy. We're all busy. Nobody aspires to be, a name on a calendar. But one thing people, and this goes back to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, we long for community. We want to be known. We want to know people, and we want to be known. And my point under asking questions is that you've got to be a relational leader.
Yes.
Now, I would say probably for at least the first 5 years of my ministry, fresh out of college, I did not score well in this area because I was so task oriented. Even at church on Sundays,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would just blow by people, and without taking a second to slow down and get to know them, because in my brain I had boom, 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 I wanted to do. And the Lord has shown me with these gray hairs that you can see if you zoom in on your camera, is that it's all about
It
relationships.
is.
It's all about relationships. John Maxwell's old quote, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, is so, so true. And so I would,
Ryan, I would also interject,
yeah.
and I think this is extremely true about every one of us. And I don't think it's
Hmm.
a bad thing. I don't think that what I'm getting ready to say is not an indication that we all are narcissists at heart. I don't think
Hmm.
so. What I think is that everybody longs to tell their story. They long to tell about their lives. People want to talk about themselves. And I don't mean that in a selfish, narcissistic way. everybody wants to be known.
They
And,
do.
it's the glory of a leader to ask.
You're exactly right. Now, this can be difficult, because you might be thinking, well, Ryan, gee whiz, we've got 2 services on Sunday,
Yes.
and they're back to back, and I barely see these volunteers. I mean, how am I going to really how do I have time to build those relationships and
Sure.
to ask questions? And I get it. That can be a challenge. So you're smart people. You got to get creative about it. Josh, I know you teach on this stuff all the time.
Yep.
Um, but you can go the old Andy Stanley quote, do for one what you wish you could do for all. So yeah, you might not be able to talk to all of your volunteers today, but maybe you can slow down for 3 minutes and talk to one of them.
Yes.
Or maybe you create some opportunities, whether it's a pre-service huddle or a post-service huddle where, hey, we're going to huddle in the back of the room for 5 minutes once the kids are gone, and we're just going to high-five each other and chat. Maybe you have everybody over to your house in the summer for a barbecue and a pool
Yes.
party. You create some opportunities for your leaders to get to know each other, for them to get to know you, and for you to get to know them. Josh, I'd be curious to hear from you because you're working with leaders all the time.
Sure.
What do you see volunteers or leaders doing to get to know their volunteers better,
Right.
especially given the fact that church can be so crazy and rushed?
Okay. This next one that I'm going to share blew my mind. And this
Hmm.
this gal, she, as you said, Ryan, as you said, we need to be creative. And
Hmm.
she said, "Okay, we're in a sports saturated culture." And so she
Hmm.
decided, and she wasn't doing this with everybody. She was doing it with her, her 12, maybe her 3 or her 1, her super key people. She said, "Hey, whoa, whoa, got a question. When does your kid have sports practice?" And they said, "Oh, my word, every single day at, you know, at 6 to 7:15."
Hmm.
"Okay, would you care if I came and sat with you through practice?" They said,
Wow.
"Why would you do that?" They said, "Well, what do you usually do?" "Well, I usually read a ridiculous, brainless paperback book." And they said, "Well, would it be okay if I came and we hung out?" "Oh, my
Mm.
word, are you kidding me?" And so, you know, once a month, once a quarter, she would go to their kids' practice. Not a game, because parents are wanting to watch a game. I
Yeah,
thought that was absolutely
it's
brilliant.
genius.
Now, she didn't necessarily have to stay for the entire 75-minute practice, but she stayed for, 30 minutes. I thought that was just absolutely genius.
That's genius.
She
I love
also,
it.
same person, she said, "Hey, um, what's something that you do all the time and you never miss?" And one person said, "I go for about a 4-mile walk every single day. Hey, would you care if I joined you one time
Hmm.
this week?" "Oh, of course." And so they went on this walk, and she is one of the most skilled leaders that I've ever seen at asking questions and digging into people's lives. And I was just was schooled. I thought, you're a genius. And
Mm.
so it's finding places where other people already are, and making that, don't make them come to me. I can
Yeah,
actually go to them.
that's
So
such
that
a good point.
those are two of the most creative ones that I've heard. There's plenty of others, but those are pretty powerful ones for me.
I love it. Love it.
So we're talking about asking.
Yeah.
So
You
P
want to move
A
to S? Yeah.
S.
So P is pray. A, ask questions.
Yep.
S, show appreciation. We probably don't need to spend a whole lot of time on this one because we all get this, but let's be reminded this is part of pastoring people. It is part of caring for people. And that is not overlooking them, not failing to express our appreciation. I have a feeling that you appreciate your leaders, that you appreciate that nursery department, that you appreciate those people that are back with the 4 and 5 year olds on Sundays. But when is the last time you expressed that
Right.
appreciation?
Right. There's a big difference.
So that's it. There's a huge, huge difference. Um, Josh, I have been teaching something lately just to make it real practical. 3, 2, 1. So here's something you can do every day to show appreciation.
Okay.
Make a 3-minute phone call.
Okay.
More about that in a second. Send 2 text messages and send one literal physical card, thank you card in the mail every day. A 3-minute call. What you were saying a few minutes ago, Josh, about those conversations you
Yep.
have that have no ask
Yes.
attached to them.
Yep.
A 3-minute call would be, I'm on my way to the office, or I'm driving on my lunch break, or I'm on my way home. And I call one of my volunteers and just say, hey, Josh, this is Ryan from the church. I don't need anything. 2 minutes. I just want to pause and just call you real quick. The Lord put you on my heart. I want to tell you, thank you for what you do on Sundays. I know that you probably realize that we appreciate you, but I want you to hear it from me again today
Yeah.
that I appreciate you, and we couldn't do this without you. Thank you for the time you give. And give them a minute to respond. All right, I'm going to leave you alone. I know you're busy. Calls like that go a long way. And
They
then
do.
that's three, a
Let me
3-minute
jump
call.
in. Let me jump in
Yes.
right there. I actualized every moment until I got home in my car. If I was driving to the store, I was calling a volunteer or I was calling a
Yeah.
leader. If I was driving on the way home, I would find somebody to get a hold of. So I lived that every single day. And sometimes it would go to
I
a
love it.
voicemail. And I did. There's often I wouldn't leave a voicemail for other things, but for this one I did. So
Leave a voicemail.
I would
I,
always, wherever I was going, I was in, I'm going to call and talk. I call it the be with factor. If they can't be with me in the next to my car, I'm going to be with them as I
I
give them a
love it.
call. Good job. Keep
That's
going.
genius. The be with factor. Yeah, I love that. And probably one of my biggest challenges personally is I don't like to make phone calls when I'm at work. I feel like at work, man, I'm here. I need to be doing stuff. I feel like car time is a great time for me to make phone calls.
Absolutely.
The challenge with that is I also feel like that's the time I could be listening to podcasts and stuff. Like, so I always have this tension, like, man, I really want to listen to this podcast, and I normally end up going to the phone and making those phone calls because,
Absolutely.
right, and I'm not saying not to listen to podcasts
Yeah,
when you're on
we
your
want them
commute.
to
We just
listen
have
to
to make
both
our
my
decision.
podcast. We want them to listen to your podcast.
Exactly. Yes. So make a 3-minute phone call, send 2 texts, the same idea, like,
Yep.
hey, Cindy, I walked by your class Sunday morning. I saw you on the floor reading a story with those 3-year-olds. I just want to tell you thank you. You're such a
Yes.
blessing.
Yes.
Goes a long way with people. And then one handwritten thank you card, which is a challenge I was given, Josh, 15 or 20 years ago
Yep.
at an event to send a thank you card in the mail every day. And by and large, I've done that when I'm at the office every day. Every day, I don't even think about it. It's the first thing I do, send somebody a thank you card. It takes me 2 minutes, the price of a stamp. But our world is so digital anymore
Absolutely.
that when somebody actually gets a card in the mail, a handwritten card, they pay attention to it.
That's
So
right. I would say that
show
snail mail,
appreciation.
that email is now the new junk mail, and snail mail is the actual golden mail.
You're right. It is.
And
Yeah, it's
we
so
won't go
rare to
into
go
it.
out to the mailbox and
That's
not
right.
find a bill or junk mail,
That's
but
right.
something that's actually a handwritten letter or card.
That's right. And
Yes.
that's something that I push big time. And if anybody is anywhere close to the Lead Volunteers ecosystem, they know that I encourage you to batch your work, right? To
Mhm.
print out 50 cards, take 1 hour of your life, handwrite out all of the addresses and put stamps on all 50, bind them together by month, and all of that busy work is done. And so then every
It's a
day,
great
then
idea.
the heart is what goes onto that card, not busy work. Okay,
Yeah,
let's go to the next
that's
one
smart.
here. Oh, by the
Yeah,
way,
T,
if I could
treasure their
say,
kids.
if I could say one
Treasure
more
their
thing,
kids.
if I could say one more thing about the S, show
Yeah.
appreciation, I would
Okay.
say
Yeah.
this. So many leaders are telling their people, they're giving their people appreciation in a way that they would want to be appreciated. It's 100% love languages. Be
Mhm.
varied in your distribution of how you're showing appreciation, and also be aware of how somebody on your team would receive appreciation. Okay, off to
That's smart.
PASTO.
Yeah. No, we need to go back to T. We didn't do T
Oh,
yet. Treasure their kids.
treasure their kids.
Treasure their kids.
I spelled,
Um,
if you're watching on the video here, I spelled pastor wrong and I have no T.
Passor. Yeah.
Passor.
A Passor. T is treasure their kids. We don't have to spend a lot of time on this one, but it means a lot to somebody when, what if you took some time to, you might to find out the birthdays of the kids. You don't have, this is just one idea. Find out your volunteers, their kids' names and birthdays? What if you sent their kids a birthday card or called them on their birthday?
Right.
Or, um, practical things you can do to take care. If my volunteers are at the church for 3 hours decorating, maybe I can help. You know what? Bring the kids. We'll have pizza for them. I'll help you take care of your kids while
Yes.
you're over here doing this.
And I would say,
Um,
here's an interesting thing. Uh, a senior pastor said to me years ago, there's two sides to this coin. Stick with me.
mhm,
The first side of the coin is the dark side. It says normal, rational people become completely irrational when it comes to their kids. In other words, you
mm,
cross a mama bear, it's on.
no
Okay,
doubt.
normal, rational people become completely irrational when it comes to their kids. The flip side to that coin is if you bless their kid, you'll have them for life.
No doubt. No doubt. You're exactly right, Josh. So look at what you can do. If it's not always feasible for all churches, but every once in a while I hear of these churches that have multiple services on a Sunday,
Yep.
and if the volunteers are there for more than one service, they'll have a room just for the volunteer kids. Like,
Yeah.
I know your kids don't want to sit through kids' church twice. So we've got a room just for volunteer kids that are here
Yes.
multiple services, and put a Nintendo Switch and some donuts in there and a leader. One
Well,
leader can handle 20 kids in that kind of a setting.
yes.
Look at what can I do, my ministry context,
Yes.
to really show my volunteers I don't just care about them, but I care about their kids. You're right, Josh. You'll have them for
You'll
life.
have them for life. And I'll say this, and I got to tell you, there are certain things that I am pretty good at, and there's certain things that I have to work really hard at.
Hmm.
Knowing and remembering the names of people's kids, that is a worthy task
Huge.
of me working at. That's not my strong suit.
Yeah.
But to know somebody's kid's name and to literally, Larry Crabb years ago said, when you see someone and when you light up when you see them, that tells a
Mm.
lot about what you think about them. And so there
That's
were times
true.
where I would not greet the volunteer. I'd freak out and greet their kid.
Yeah.
And that
That's
spoke volumes.
boy, that's
Okay,
genius. That's worth the podcast right there.
you betcha.
Oh, offer breaks. Now, some churches, I don't know if there's a right or wrong way to do this. Some people will schedule their volunteers for the fall. I mean, during the school year, and then give them the summer off, and you have another team come in. Some people just, you know, go at it like, hey, will you teach the fourth graders until the Lord calls you to do something different, or until you
Yep,
die? And it's like, this is your community. However you go at it, just keep in mind everybody does need a break from time to
they
time.
do.
And so, I'm not a sports fan, but I'm told that
Me either.
professional baseball, they play 162 games a year. That's a lot of games, but they have an off season. So
Yes.
everybody, yourself included, you recognize that you need a week off from time to time. Your volunteers do as well, and that shows them that you care. If you make it as easy for them as possible to have a break here and
Yes.
there.
I would say one thing about, actually, there's several things. Number one, we did do the summer off. We actually forced even our go getter awesome ones, we forced
Yeah.
them in love. We'd have a great conversation, say, hey, I'm cool. I'm totally good to go. But we actually really encourage time off. But it doesn't just have to, this came to me as you were speaking, it doesn't just have to be when you have scheduled them to be off. In other words, just the dedicated season when this person according to your
Yes.
schedule, but it comes
Yeah.
down to knowing your people and saying, hey, you know what? Let's give you a reprieve. In other words, a good coach sees a sprained ankle and they take some time to
No
heal
doubt.
that thing, as opposed to a coach who says, hey, man, tape an aspirin to it, get back in the game, would you? No, a good
Yeah.
coach is caring for their people. I love it. Offer
That's true.
breaks. Let's go to this last one. R.
Yeah, resource them. So resource them. When I was a young kids pastor, I think I was still in college actually. I don't know if I was on staff at the church. I had a guy tell me once, in talking about ministry context and leading a team, he said, never ask somebody to build a house and then give them an empty toolbox.
Ouch.
All these years later, I've remembered that to this day. So don't put somebody in a room and then give them no resources. So,
Yes.
I mean, I know this sounds simple, but I feel like I just need to speak it. Maybe your audience doesn't need this, but I'm amazed at even how many people put the burden on their leaders of coming up with a curriculum or lessons. So,
Right.
put teaching material in the hands of your leaders. If they need sharp crayons, make sure
That's
they've
right.
got sharp crayons and paper, access to a copy machine. So make sure that
Well,
if they
it,
need a little bit of a budget, try to help them
yes.
find a budget. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. So the way that one of my recruiting lines was always, hey, listen, I don't want you on a Saturday night thinking in your mind, oh my word, I'm out to dinner with my husband, but I
Mhm.
need 17 jujubes, I need
Yes.
18 craft sticks, and I need to have red, not green, red pipe cleaners. No,
Yeah.
thank you. We want to let you know we will take care of all of that stuff for you. Now, to push pause, we had a volunteer come in on the regular who did not want to be with kids but appreciated the vision for kids, and they would put their administrative gifts in order to provide all
I
of
love
those
it.
things for those people. So it's resourcing people. In addition, the person who was pulling those crafts, good gracious, you should have seen how intensely organized and clean our resource closet was, so that when that volunteer came in, they had a resourced area to be able to pull off their things.
That
One thing,
which is huge,
it's
Josh.
huge.
That's right. That's huge. If
I
you
want to,
can even my church had the same kind of situation where I was blessed where I was able to have a resource room. If you don't even have a room though, I mean, if you have a closet or two and some cabinets, make sure they are
that's
organized
right.
and make sure that stuff is where it goes and the leaders know where to get to it, because that can be very frustrating to a teacher that shows up on Sunday needing some washable markers and they're nowhere to be found or they're all dried out.
That's right.
Um, Boy, that's a game changer. And
I
that's
would say
part of
one more thing, Ryan.
resourcing them.
One other thing is that when I had my 12 leaders, my 3 leaders, and my Super Insider 1 leader, I would take multiple people to the Orange Conference. I would take multiple people who were volunteers to the Children's Pastors Conference or CPC, and
Mhm,
I celebrate and do a huge double thumbs up when I'm at the Kids Matter Conference and a
mhm.
singular youth pastor or children's pastor has brought with them their key team, and their eyes just open and
Huge.
they're like, I never knew this thing was just this big. And so that's one way that I sought to resource them. They would go to breakouts and they would come back and they would just talk for hours about what they were learning. So resourcing them can come in big and in small ways.
Well, it can. You're right. Yeah, exactly. It's all about pastoring your volunteers. Now, listen, Josh, I know we got to wrap up.
Sure.
Think about this. What's this look like for me in my ministry
Let's do that.
context? And what can I start doing today?
Yes.
So you don't have to, yeah, think through it. I mean, what's a long-term plan? But don't put it so far out there that you can't just start doing some stuff today to start pastoring those volunteers. What's something you can do to just pastor one of them today?
That's right.
You'll never regret it. It's an
That's right.
investment of time, but it is an investment that will pay rich dividends and one that you'll never regret.
Ryan, thank you. I would also say, in terms of like, pick one, PASTOR, pick one that you don't have to
Hmm.
be overwhelmed by all 6. Pick
Yeah.
one and say, okay, I'm going to dedicate a little bit of time to this. I want to also say, gosh, it feels good to do good. If you do this, listen, the kingdom of God, it's upside down. It is better to give than to receive. If you
Yeah.
do these things to these people, your tank is going to be filled and you're going to want to do it more.
No doubt.
Man, this is good
No
stuff,
doubt.
Ryan. This has been a
And
fantastic.
and Josh,
Yeah,
I'd say
please.
this: if 6 is too many, just make it PASOR. Make it 5. Be a pastor instead.
And
Okay.
forget the
Yeah.
T just like I did.
Forget the T.
That's
Yes.
exactly right. Well, this
I'm
is
just
good.
teasing, Josh. You're doing a great job. Thanks for having me on the podcast
Hey,
today.
man, this has been a lot of fun. Well, gang, so grateful that you guys have joined us today. This, again, is the Lead Volunteers Podcast, and we will catch you guys on the next one.